Africa. The young man was one of my missionaries, and it's his girlfriend, Michelle. And then you'll see the missionary be greeted by two missionaries. One of them was another of our MTC missionaries. So I'm pulling from kids who knew, who as we go over the script could say, you need to add this, you need to add this particular thing. No, Elder Umbuyi is the real missionary's name, the revolutionary, the former revolutionary. He would always say, I have people telling me how to make it realistic, and then I have instruction in the dialect itself. So when we filmed the opening scene, we used French instead of dialect, although we could have used dialect, but I thought that would be a bit harder for people to understand. But it's African French. The guy who does it is from Guinea, and I love the African French. We filmed it up Spanish Fork Canyon and just had a great time. But that's the story itself. I think it's probably time for another Mormon missionary story. We've had God's Army, and then the best 2 years. There have been like the sister missionary story, which I can't remember the name of that one. I had some sort of satirical stories too. But The Other Side of Heaven. That's actually.
Oh yeah, that's the big one.
I think so. John Groberg is my uncle, and so I've already had a.
Is the sister missionary one the Errand of Angels?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it was like right on the tip of my tongue, and I'd heard of that one before.
On mine too. John Groberg is my uncle, and
so
we got to see the big premiere, which was just so fun. But Mitch Davis, my husband and I have had a long talk with Mitch about the sorts of things we need to do. We've talked to Mitch, Jared Hess, who did Napoleon Dynamite, who's just a spectacular man. We've been getting really wonderful advice from him. Sterling Van Wagenen, who did the Work in the Glory movies, actually is constantly doing church movies and other movies. He was the producer for Trip to Bountiful. We've had chats with him as well. So we're moving forward. We made the trailer with a student. We didn't have a huge amount of money, so made it with a student crew and paid everybody who was involved. But now we're not really going to start the forward push until after the elections, when we will hit fundraising and choose our director as well. So we've got a trailer, which is what we call just a tease, just so people can get a sense of, oh, I'm excited to see how this happens. We will probably make another trailer when we're further along in it, and then plan on releasing in 2014.
So since you mentioned that Elder Price is the elder both in your movie, Heart of Africa, and then also the Book of Mormon musical, and these are both about Africa, do you think people will make comparisons between the two at all, or do you think they're totally different?
Well, they are totally different, but I hope they make comparisons. I think I chose that. I had originally called the missionary Elder Pratt, even though I waited. I didn't tell Brandon Price, I want you to play the protagonist here. Actually, we have two protagonists with the Congolese missionary and the Anglo missionary. I didn't tell him until I heard him read, because I had to be assured that he could pull it off. And he was so good. You have to see the trailer and just look at his face. It's just, he doesn't say much at all, but his face is just wonderful. He is going to be so good. We've got Daner Gerald, who has done a lot of movies and is a professional, a SAG actor playing Elder Mbuyi, except I changed his name, Elder Kandu. And they're all wonderful. I based one of the characters on the missionary who plays him. And originally he had said, now, I can't act. But when we did the read-through, I said, nobody else can pull this off, because I wrote this as you, and you're the only one who knows how to say these lines. I originally had Elder Pratt, not Elder Price, and thought, no, this is the way that we're going to aim to cross over. We're trying to do, meaning that we aren't just a Mormon film, that we move into the mainstream. And we plan to take advantage of the Mormon moment, which will continue regardless of what happens in November, will continue because of the Book of Mormon musical. And I thought the two things we will have real African music, our musical people are recording street music, and the songs, the revolutionary songs that are real, that are the songs they would sing with reverence towards the African talent. So it will be an ethnic experience. But besides that, as a maneuver to get on shows or whatever, to say, well, there's the Elder Price in the Book of Mormon musical who plays a missionary going to Africa on his mission. And then there is this Elder Price who actually did go to Africa on his mission. And he's not really portraying himself, because Brandon Price doesn't have a prejudiced bone in his body. But boy, he plays the character beautifully. And I put so much from their missions on it. As they were reading through the script, they would just break up laughing, and then they'd say, "Oh, do you remember when that happened?" And it was just a fun thing. But it gets very serious. It goes to the very deepest issues that we can go to. I do kind of use The Other Side of Heaven as this sort of thing. I loved it. I was raised with stories of John Grober because he's my mother's brother. And in fact, my mom and dad were married on August 17th, 1954. John was endowed in the temple that same day. And then mom and dad had their wedding reception, and John left for his mission. So I was raised, for example, with the story of it. It actually wasn't a priest who gave John the marmalade after the hurricane. It was just an old man who came to him and said, "You are young. You have a whole life ahead of you. Take this from me so that you can live." And John really does believe that his life was saved that day by that gift of marmalade. John has been our keynote speaker. I should say Elder Groberg. Elder Groberg has been our keynote speaker at AML. I requested that last year. I'm hoping, as I teach LDS literature in the semester that comes, one of the books I have us reading, the original title was In the Eye of the Storm. But when Mitch's movie came, Perfect Storm had just come out, had not been a great box office hit, so they changed the title to The Other Side of Heaven. And then Deseret Book changed the title of In the Eye of the Storm. So I'm planning on having my class read that. It's a wonderful memoir. And then I would like to have a nice assembly where we have John, Elder Groberg come, and Mitch Davis come. To Elder Groberg to talk about his experience in Tonga, and Mitch to talk about making the film.
Excellent. And so you mentioned that you want your film to be more mainstream. How hard is it as an author or a filmmaker to be LDS, making a movie about LDS people and LDS themes and have that appeal to a mainstream audience? I think Other Side of Heaven kind of did that.
Actually, I was in San Francisco. I was leaving the hotel to go to the airport, and the shuttle driver from the hotel was Tongan. And I mentioned The Other Side of Heaven, and she said, "Oh, we've all seen that." And she didn't identify who "we" was, but I had no reason to think she was LDS. This was San Francisco. So I got the idea of we Tongans have all seen that. So I think it actually did do some crossover. And, it's been, you can get it on, I don't know if you can get it on Netflix, but it shows periodically on some of the movie channels.
Yeah.
The truth is, marketing a Mormon film that is distinctly Mormon, that's not making fun of the church, but is taking it seriously, it's very, very difficult. Richard Dutcher, the last film he made while he was still in the church was States of Grace, which I think is a beautiful film. My family actually did a family review of it where three of us, my husband, myself, and our son, reviewed it. And all of us were deeply moved. But when he tried to get it beyond Utah, beyond the Mormon corridor, and in California, when people would try and buy tickets to it, they were told by the person selling them, "We need to warn you, this is not a Christian film." States of Grace would indicate that it would have something to do with Christ, which of course it does.
Yeah.
But their definition of Christian, but they actually would warn potential customers against that film.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's what we are truly up against, is the prejudice that we've seen a bit in the Mormon moment, where particularly in cinema, apparently the people are instructed to warn the customer against the Mormon film.
So one last question here. Do you have any, this is kind of an open-ended question, but do you have any future plans? What's on the horizon? Or is the Heart of Africa project keeping you busy enough at the moment?
I always have future plans. There's never a time that I think that's, again, part of the creative mind, that there's not a time where you say, okay, no more creative work. I remember Gene England coming when we were in England. He came to visit us, and he said, okay, I've sworn I'm not going to write essays.